Welcome back to the Cartek Roadsports Endurance Series. For this encounter we find ourselves here at Corby at the Rockingham Speedway. This track consists of fast oval sections followed by the tight twisty technical infield sections, and with a huge grid of production vehicles, different classes. The classes are decided based on power to weight ratio, and with a mandatory pit stop halfway through the race, things do get hectic. So with that, hand you up to our commentary team, Andy McEwen, to take through all the action.
Yes, thank you, Anthony. Cars lining up on the grid then with Guy Colclough and Stuart Lyons in the Seat Cupra TCR car on pole position ahead of Andy Marston and Brett Evans. Most of the cars, as you'll see, are shared by two drivers. There are a few of them going it alone though. We'll get into that a little bit more as the race goes on. But on pole position then, that Seat Cupra TCR car, if you cast your minds back to the first round of the series at Brands Hatch, it was a similar car. It was the Seat Leon Euro Cup car of Jamie Sturgis that took the checkered flag. I wonder whether we're going to see a similar story here with that TCR machine on the front row. It will have a disadvantage off the line, though, you'd imagine, compared to the rear-wheel drive cars around it. Let's find out, though. 45 minutes of racing about to get underway. The lights go out now. Away we go, and it is indeed a good start made by the rear-wheel drive cars, in particular the little Vauxhall of Wayne Rothwell. Here comes Balsidou as well, but it will be Andy Marston that leads down towards turn number one. Balsidou, though, from 10th on the grid, is going to challenge for the race lead through turn number one, which he does, and more than challenge for it. He takes the race lead, so the black car of Balsidou leads the race, and I promise you, he started 10th on the grid, but because of the width of the circuit here on the oval section, at least at Rockingham, he was able to use that superior traction to carve his way through right to the front of the field. Second place for Marston, third place for Wayne Rothwell, side by side then for fourth position, and that looked like it was going to continue, I think, that battle on the way up in towards Chapman Corner. Everyone's safely through Yentwood into the next right-hander at Chapman, and let's hope, oh no, we've got drama there. That's the 101 car is one of the cars involved in that one by the looks of it. We've also got Colin Gillespie in the number 15 tangled up. Nick Grove and Carlo Turner's BMW was the 101 car, but I think they've all been able to continue without too much damage. Another side-by-side battle here coming down towards Graceland's Corner to be sorted out. That's the number 40 BMW of Jasper Sapra, just about fending off Josh Johnson in his VW Golf, but a frantic start to the race. This is the fight for second place between early race leader, at least into the first corner, Andy Marston, and the fast starter, Wayne Rothwell, who arguably could have been in the race lead, just lacked a bit of the outright grunt of the M3 BMWs around him. He got that initial jump off the line, but then just wasn't really able to go anywhere with it as they rushed towards Dean Hairpin for the first time. On board with the Honda Civic of Robert Harrison and Jordan Fox here, which has slipped down the order slightly after being contender for a top 5 position in the initial going. A fair few Civics in the on the grid though in this race, and the Fox and Harris machine, one that we're watching for, trying to move forward. The car it's trying to get past at the moment is the little Vauxhall Corsa of James Birch and Chris Morton, and he looks to the inside, can't do it in towards Dean though. So all through the hairpin for the second time of asking. 45 minutes the duration of this race, remember, so there's plenty of time to make progress. We've also got pit stops to take into account, and pit stop success penalties as well, which will certainly shuffle the order up slightly. Wayne Rothwell in particular, running third at the moment, has a 10-second success penalty due to the fact that he has a class win from earlier on this season. You get 15 seconds added onto your pit stop time at the next race if you win your class, and then with every race that goes by, you take 5 seconds off that. Unfortunately, losing a few more than 5 seconds is our pole-sitting Seat of Guy Colclough and Stuart Lyons. It's Guy who started the race, I believe, and unfortunately has not had a great start. He dropped back off the initial launch, lost more places further around the first lap, and now a spin at Chapman Curve has further delayed that car and therefore hurt their chances of fighting for a race victory or a podium. Leaders coming back through, and it's all starting to get a bit more congested at the front, isn't it? We've got these 3 BMWs, and in amongst them, the diminutive Vauxhall VX220 of Wayne Rothwell, who we're on board with now, heading down towards the Brook chicane. But Balsidou, having made that great start, of course, he did only qualify 10th, so he's not, in theory, as quick as the cars that are immediately behind him. So he's going to have to get his elbows out now to try and keep them at bay. Marston under pressure from Wayne Rothwell, but then you can see the BMW just gap the Vauxhall down the straight. In fact, the Vauxhall could lose another position now to another BMW that's diving up the inside, and that one's Rob Meredith in the 61 machine. So Meredith goes third place. He scored a class podium last time out. He was third in class at Croft, which means that he will have a 5-second success penalty when his pit stop comes around. He's under pressure now there from Marston, who almost clatters into the... Sorry, Rothwell, excuse me, almost clatters into the back of him. Double wave yellows at the next corner, so there must be a car off somewhere. That doesn't stop Wayne Rothwell nipping around the outside of Rob Meredith. Let's hope that he got that move made before they arrived at the yellow flag zone. It's not immediately obvious what the cause of the yellow flag is. Ah, yes it is. It is the 101 car of Grove and Turner. So no, it's car number 1, I beg your pardon, Gary Patterson and Aaron Bowman-Smith. We've also had dramas, I'm afraid, for the BMW of Callum Noble, I believe that is, that's slowed out on the pit straight in rather smoky fashion. So a few cars starting to drop by the wayside as we join back in with the lead group. And it's all changed up here again, hasn't it now? Because finally we're starting to see Andy Ebden and Paul Wells' little Caterham working its way forward, trying to find a way past the quarter of James Birch and Chris Morton, on board with the Harrison and Fox Civic, which is a few places further back as we head through this left-right flick at the Piff Path and then into this very tricky downhill braking zone into the double apex left-hander at Kirby. You can see that they don't bother with the first apex. It's all about clipping that second curb and getting the run up what is a deceptively steep incline up towards Gracelands. Yellow flags out there as well, although again I wasn't entirely sure what the reason for that was. Is there a car off on the exit? No, the reason was because we're about to go safety car, so presumably with a couple of cars and possibly some fluid around the circuit. Oh dear, what happened there? That was Guy Colclough. Guy Colclough ran into the back of the Civic that we were riding on board with there that had slowed for the yellow flags, and the Seat clearly hadn't slowed quite as much, and unfortunately that is going to bring the Civic into the pit lane and presumably into retirement. Well, plenty of drama here in the early stages. As the safety car is out, the pit lane window has opened, and first to dive in will be Rob Meredith and James Birch and Chris Morton's Vauxhall Corsa. So it is all changed now. They will take full advantage of this. Essentially, it's a free pit stop. If you pit whilst the safety car's out, you won't lose as much time to the rest of the pack, because once you get back out on circuit, you will be able to catch back up to the tail end of the crocodile. So all of the drivers making a pit stop now, I'd say that's a fairly savvy move. You can see that Guy Colclough had come in as well to hand over to former British touring car racer, now TCR UK racer Stuart Lyons in the Seat. These cars, though, decided to stay out, and they include some of our lead contenders, in particular Balsidou, who still leads the way from Wayne Rothwell's second. Into third place now is Jasper Sapra, and fourth for Josh Johnson. There is the BMW being towed away, car number 19, that looks like that was, which is Callum Noble, indeed, who had pulled off on the pit straight. Out there, the safety car, there is some confusion here because the safety car has picked up the Honda Civic, hasn't it, of Neil Martin, that looks like. Yes, it is. And then behind is car 16, which is the Andy Marston and Brett Evans car. So presumably the Civic had found its way in front somewhere before all of this. The lights are now out on the safety car, which means we're going racing this time. I assure you there are more than 2 cars still in the race, but because of the... Well, it's a few things really. The fact that lots of people have pitted behind the safety car, and that we've had, it's a long lap here at Rockingham, so it takes them quite a long time to close in. And look at that, Neil Martin gesticulating to Andy Marston and Brett Evans. Let's go before the rest of the pack catch up. That is something I've never seen before. 2 drivers running in completely different teams, competing against each other, working together to make sure that they both get a good restart, because the last thing they want to do, that there was no sense there in Neil Martin backing the field up, because there was no field, it was just the Marston and Evans BMW behind, and you can see the gap that they've got over the rest of the field, so they wanted to just get out of there before anybody else turned up. Here is the gap back to Balsidou, who is next through, 3rd place for him then at the moment, and then another big gap back to the rest of them, who are in some confusion, I think, starting to come across the line. You can see Wayne Rothwell is in, so are Jasper Sapra, Josh Johnson, and that looks like the Andy Ebden and Paul Wells car, which, remember, will have to serve an extra 15 seconds in the pit lane. There is a minimum pit stop time already that all of the cars have to adhere to, and then you have the success time added on too. So there is, it's 178 that's in, actually, the Caterham. and that car is completing its pit stop. I believe that was the Empton Wells car. They just haven't been renumbered yet to the correct number. This is the battling going on out on circuit, but it's all rather confused now with the safety car and the pit window being timed as they were. On screen we can see Rob Meredith chasing down Andrew Winchester and Josh Orr's BMW, but they, I don't believe, are on the same schedule. Stuart Lyons dives up the inside in the Seat. You can see that car going quite a bit quicker now through the second half of the race. And yep, there goes Stuart, carves his way through. Back down through the banking at turn 1, and Rob Meredith able to follow back through as well. Of course, the other benefit to pitting behind the safety car was that your success penalty has less of an effect, because it's one thing to lose 15 seconds to another car under green flag running, but if you lose 15 seconds to them behind the safety car, that all gets negated anyway when you rejoin the circuit. So it does baffle me slightly as to why more cars didn't come in during the safety car. Anyway, Sam McKee and Adam Meelan's BMW there we had a look at on screen as it made its way out of the Tarzan hairpin. Just gives us a chance to just check in with some of the cars running a bit further down the order that we wouldn't necessarily usually get to check in with, particularly the little Ginetta there, the G27 of Christopher Fellows and Russell Douglas. Into the pit lane just in front of them comes Giles Locke and Simon Gerrard's VR6 Volkswagen Golf. Mazda MX-5 in this group as well of Ben Abbott and Jack Mitchell. Ben Abbott, who traditionally shares a little Peugeot 107 with his brother Dan Abbott in various Roadsports style series around the country. We're trying something different this weekend. Right, battle on circuit, and this is the Andy Ebden and Paul Wells Caterham defending from, I think that's the Andy Marston and Brett Evans BMW, isn't it, as they go down in towards the Dean hairpin, and he will just about keep the BMW at bay for the time being. The number 8 Honda of Neil Martin with them, and they make their way back up towards the right-hander at Yentwood. And it looks as though there's no doubt about it, Marston and Evans' car is quicker at this stage. Can it find a way through there? Has a look up the inside in towards Chapman Curve. Too far back though to make it work. I'm back on board with the Winchester and Orr compact BMW, and through goes the little Vauxhall Corsa of James Birch and Chris Morton. That was, I believe, 4th position, just because of the way that the strategies have worked out. We've got drivers now racing with cars that they wouldn't usually find themselves racing for position with, and of course, if you think it's confusing for us what's going on, it's even more confusing really for the drivers out on circuit, because they have, most of them, if not all of them, very little to no communication with their team on the pit wall, who are really the only people who can let them know what's going on. Side by side here though, it looks like, was there an issue there maybe for the Ebden and Wells Caterham? It just didn't really seem to accelerate out of the hairpin as it should have done. He's continuing at speed now, but the Marston and Evans BMW has gone through. The question now becomes whether or not Neil Martin's Honda Civic can find a way past. This, I believe, is the fight for the lead potentially now, after all of the pit stops are done. So this is of significance. Through will go Neil Martin. You've got Bal Sidhu to factor into this somewhere as well, of course, who's pitted, but I'm not quite sure where exactly he came out of the pit lane, so because he pitted as the safety car came in, so we'll presumably have lost a little bit more time than some of the others who pitted behind the safety car. They'll all come out in the wash, but for the time being, confusion reigns here at Rockingham. But Andy Marston's certainly looking quick, and I do believe he's just got himself into a podium position at least. There is Callum Noble being pushed back in towards the garage. Unfortunately, his day is done, and the rather strikingly liveried BMW has come to a stop fairly early on in the race. Unfortunately, it's the Thorney Motorsport Group, who are John Thorne's team, who are running that car. Back with the Birch and Morton Corsa as it's doing battle now with Liam Crilly in the Mazda RX-8. Again, that's for position. It's another position gained by the Corsa, which appears to have lost out more than others through the pit stop cycle. And that is in part, I'm sure, because of its class podium last time out, meaning that it has a 10-second success penalty. However, Crilly is coming back at him. Corsa, though, look at the way that it goes in a straight line. It's got plenty of poke and runs away from the Mazda RX-8, which are words I never thought I'd say, but the Vauxhall Corsa really is tuned to a very high standard. So too, of course, the Mazda, but it's a little bit more production-based, you sense, than the Corsa might be. So the Vauxhall heads into the Dean Hairpin, having gained another position, well inside the top 10 now, but just with a little bit of ground to still be made up. Top 5 though still on the cards, I'd say, and of course really the car that it's watching for is Neil Martin in the Honda Civic, because they are both in Class B, and so they're fighting for class honours, class points. Well, no, not points, there are no championship points available for this. It is a series of races rather than a championship, but still class honours. You want the trophy for winning your class as well. Liam Crilly just comes up against the MG of Joe Cruttenden and Matthew Broadbent there in an awkward position through the Piff-Paff chicane. Crilly in danger of being caught by, I think that was Andrew Winchester and Josh Orr in the BMW E36 Compact that we saw a few laps ago. Whoops, and Crilly, well, I'm not quite sure what happened there, just ran very, very wide into Gracelands and lost even more time. So there you go, that's not quite going to plan for them at the moment. Back out of Tarzan goes the 58 Corsa though, on its way once more. Aiming to try and gain as many more positions before the end of the race as possible. Check back in with our leaders though, who are making their way through. Oh, into the pit lane, unfortunately, is coming the Toyota MR2 of Paul Cook, who races in the 750 Motor Club MR2 Championship with that car, but unfortunately not having the rub of the green here this weekend. Looks like a mechanical issue has put him out of the race. Back across the line though comes the Marston and Evans BMW. Then it's Neil Martin in second place. And I think that's Balsidou next in line in third. Here comes Jasper Sapra in the white BMW, and Josh Johnson not far behind him in the Mark V VW Golf GTI. BMW though, one of the newer shaped M3s of course for Balsidou. He is in blissful isolation at the moment though, no one around him to trip over or battle with, so he's just trying to get his head down and set some really quick lap times if at all possible. Back into Yentwood and then through to Chapman Curve, this very technical infield section at the Rockingham Motor Speedway. You think of Rockingham when you think of the banking, you think of the high speeds up against the concrete wall, but actually it is more of a technical circuit than it is a power circuit, just because of how twisty and tricky the infield section is. Right, we're with car number 87 now, which is the Andrew Winchester and Josh Orr BMW. You can see how much closer we're getting to Liam Crilly's Mazda now as we head down into the Tarzan hairpin. Through the right-hander, back up the hill again. Again, it's quite a steep incline there out of the hairpin. It's important to get good traction, and that's why rear-wheel drive cars tend to come to the fore here at Rockingham, because there are quite a few really tight corners, and with some of them leading into quite steep inclines, you need all of the traction, all of the bite out of the corner that you can get. There's Balsidou. Josh Johnson, you can see not far behind, and then Wayne Rothwell trying to regain time from possibly badly timed pit stop, and also the 10-second success penalty for the class win last time out and the overall win. So he should be able to gain more ground than that, I'd imagine. Wayne Rothwell in the Vauxhall VX220, we're on board with him now, and Josh Johnson is the next car in front of us, I think. So this is for a position inside the top 10 now for Wayne. He'll be a bit frustrated that this is all he's fighting for at this stage of the race, but knew that he was always going to be facing an uphill task as a result of the success penalties. He dives up the inside, and I think he's going to make that stick. So as Balsidou makes his way back onto the infield for another lap, I believe we can head down to the pit lane and talk to Anthony, who's caught up with John Thorne, who runs the car that was retired in the early stages by Callum Noble. Let's see if John can shed any light on exactly what happened.
Made a bit of a noise, so ran all Friday okay, did qualifying okay, but something's gone disastrously wrong here. So yeah, so it's kicked out a load of smoke. So it looks top end and sounds top end, but yeah, it looks pretty terminal so far.
Yeah, he made a decent start as well, didn't he, Callum? Making up 5 places at the start. Yeah,
we're delighted with that. We don't plan for the start. If you race at Rockingham, you know that the hairpin don't get stuck on the inside. Every time I raced it, you go around the outside of people. It's a high risk view, because if you do get caught up in something, you're T-boned out of the race, but you always take a load of places there, and he did what we suggested. He got to the outside line, took 5 cars and doing well. We were over the moon with it, so a little frustrating to have an engine problem exactly when we're doing a good start in the race, but he did fantastic at that point in time. But it's a new car this year. We knew we'd get a few teething problems, but this wasn't the plan. It's always ends up burst time as well. You get a good start, good race, and it all goes wrong, but that's racing.
Is it fixable?
Not for the race, no, it's not. It's dead today. But looking at it, I think it's going to be, yeah, it looks smoky, doesn't it?
Oh dear, well, John Thorne, very respected race driver, of course, in UK motor racing circles. He knows when an engine is dead, and that engine is dead for the time being. There's Stuart Lyons turning his way down towards the hairpin at Dean. Now, we believe that that car is under investigation for the contact that it had with the Honda Civic earlier on, if you remember, the Jordan Fox and Robert Harrison Civic. There's no visible damage, really, on the front of the Cupra, but it did have contact under yellow flags, and that is being investigated, we believe, by the race officials. This car carving its way through the order now, though, in the hands of Stuart Lyons. Checking in a bit further back with the Caterham Sigma there of Ethan Burnett and Andrew Gord, which we saw in the pit lane a little bit earlier on, the orange car. It's just found a way past to put a lap on, I believe, the MGZ R160 of Joe Crittenden and Matthew Broadbent. A few of the quicker cars starting to carve their way through now, though, as we get into the closing stages of this race. And behind, we've got a couple of BMWs getting a bit tripped up over each other now, and this, I believe, is the fight for second place. So the leader is Stuart Lyons, and this battle going on just in the back of shot there as it turned into the Brook chicane was, I believe, a battle for a podium position, but the Cupra well on its way to a race victory, it would seem, on the road at least. However, is that going to be the case when the discussion has been had in the stewards' room later on? In fact, it may well be ongoing already, with Guy Colclough having returned to the pit lane fairly early on to hand over to Stuart Lyons. It may well be that discussion has already taken place, and we may well have an answer for you before the end of the race as to who is going to come out on top, whether it's going to be this car or whether it's going to serve some sort of a penalty. So it turns through Chapman Curve, looking resplendent. Good to see more and more of these TCR cars appearing in the UK. Here is a battle going on behind between Wayne Rothwell and Bal Sidhu in the BMW M3, and Bal Sidhu is about to have to get his elbows out to try and keep this very rapid VX220 at bay. Now, Bal's car is not quite as quick in a straight line as some of the other BMWs out here, so there's a chance that Rothwell can at least keep up with him in a straight line and maybe have a dive on the brakes down towards the Dean hairpin. He might not even wait that long, though. Look at the exit speed that he gets out of the chicane, but then there's a frustrated wave of the hand as the BMW, even though it's underpowered compared to some of the other BMWs, just streaks away from him across the start-finish line. He carries more speed through turn one, though, and he will be close enough, I think, to have a lunge up the inside. Bal knows that, so moves over to defend. To the outside goes Wayne Rothwell. Now, we heard John Thorne saying this is risky business, but if you can make it stick, you can make plenty of ground. Doesn't go right round the outside, he cuts back instead to the late apex. Bal Sidhu's all sideways in front of us. Rothwell to the left-hand side. Now watch for another switch back coming here out of Yentwood and in towards Chapman Curve. There are a couple of back markers in front as well, which Wayne and Bal will both be fully aware of. But Bal Sidhu is well and truly defending the inside line here, as he's perfectly entitled to do. But it's so frustrating when you're in the car that's quicker through the corners, but not as quick in a straight line. You need to maximise your corner speed. When the car in front of you is just standing on the brakes and holding the inside line, it's really frustrating because you just feel that the only way to get through is to drive through the car in front, and that's not really the way to do it. Check back in with Rob Meredith here, who is running in a podium position for the time being. Back up towards Yentwood, and car number 61 really looking strong here. Fighting for class honours, of course, with the Seat that's out front, and also Rob Meredith and Bal Sidhu's BMW, so they're the cars that Andy Marston and Brett Evans' BMWs, excuse me. That's the car that Rob Meredith is going to be really watching out for here, as well as Bal Sidhu, who's also running in class, but he's quite a bit further down the road, over the hill, back down into Gracelands, and he has driven impeccably so far to be guaranteed a podium finish. And of course, if there is some sort of judicial procedure taken up against the Cupra, he could even gain a bit more ground back through the Tarzan hairpin. More traffic's just been dealt with. That's going to be a constant factor in a race like this. We started with nearly 30 cars out on the circuit. We still have, I believe, about 22 or 23 of them running as well, so the circuit is still fairly busy. Just in front of him, we can see another one of the Toyota MR2s coming through. That's the Christian Timms and Steve Lawson car, the red car, just ahead of the Wayne Sterling Parker and Rod Weston Bartholomew Rover, which is not quite as quick as Rob Meredith's BMW, it must be said. Right, onto the final lap goes Stuart Lyons, and he just needs to navigate the Rockingham International Super Sports Car long circuit one more time, and then he will be a race winner. He and Guy Colclough, for the first time this season, it's the first race that they've entered this season in the Cartek Roadsports Endurance Series. But Stuart Lyons, of course, been racing in TCR UK all season. Guy Colclough, I believe he's trying to persuade him to come and join in the fun as well. But Stuart has been racing, it would seem, somewhere every weekend this season. Turns his way back out of Gracelands, got the little Lotus that he's just found a way past, which is a car we hadn't seen yet in this race. That's Leon Bidgeway. But as the Guy Colclough owned and Stuart Lyons driven Seat Cupra TCR car turns its way out of Tarzan, it's just a few corners from home now. And what has been a splendid drive by Stuart, but perhaps still a question mark over the result. We'll wait and see what the decision is post-race, but for the time being, the car comes out of the final corner, heads up to the start-finish line and sees the checkered flag to win round number 3 of the Cartek Motorsports Electronics Roadsports Endurance Series, and in fairly comfortable fashion, it must be said. We wait for the second place cars to come across the line. Now we believe that Andy Marston and Brett Evans' BMW, yes, look at that, was caught by Rob Meredith, but not quite overtaken on the final lap. Also, as you can see there, the Colclough and Lyons car was disqualified for that contact under the yellow flag, so they do not make it through to the end of the race. Class winners, Andy Marston and Brett Evans win Class A and the overall race victory. Neil Martin wins Class B in the Honda Civic, whilst Liam Crilly's Mazda wins in Class C. Ben Abbott and Jack Mitchell win in Class D, and there you can see the fairly substantial list of retirements, most notably though the exclusion for the car that won on the road.
Finishing 9th overall. That RX-8 is pretty quick.
It's a great car. It's much maligned on a road car, but as a race car it works really well, except fuel consumption.
Neil, firstly congratulations on the class win. It was a tough race, especially behind the safety car.
Yeah, well, I pitted when the safety car come in, which might have been a mistake because it was out the next lap, and that's probably cost us a bit further up, but still first in class. So